Blessings, beloveds. Anastasia with you today, your cosmic astrologer. Thank you for tuning in again. Alright, so today what I decided to do a video on is Jupiter. There's a couple of things I want to focus on, and the main things are what happens to Jupiter when it's in rulership and exaltation, which are its prime positions, and well, how does it work when it's in rulership? And it's probably fairly obvious, really. But I also want to really address what happens to Jupiter when he's in fall or detriment or fall. It's really important to understand this and to know, because it can help a lot of people understand a very large component of their life and why they feel about life to an extent in the way that they do. So I'm going to unpack that a little bit, and then I'm going to bring in something called Firdaria periods, which is from medieval astrology, and it's a sequence of cycles and periods that we go through based on if you're a night birth and if you're a day birth, you will start with different planets, etc. And I just want to point to where the Jupiter period is throughout that particular system. I've been working with Firdaria periods for quite a few years. I studied medieval astrology a very long time ago, and some of the techniques and principles and methods that I took away from the study of medieval astrology, one of them is the Firdaria periods, and there seems to be something in this particular system, but it's, you know, you really have to study it and work with a lot of charts to get a feel of how it actually works, which I have been doing through the years. So that's another thing I want to bring in, and the third thing that I want to bring in is I want to point to just one thing in the actor Dustin Hoffman's chart, just with regards to the sexual misconduct allegations that have come through just recently this year, and further allegations by an additional 5 women. And I want to show you how that fits in terms of this particular topic with regards to Jupiter. Okay, so I don't want to unpack Jupiter in terms of all the various dimensions and meanings of Jupiter, because I could spend 3 hours doing that, to be quite honest. And I'm not going to do that. And as I've pointed out, there are 3 main sort of components that I want to focus on. So I'll just start by just reminding everybody. So Jupiter is the largest planet in our solar system. It has a 12-year cycle or orbit around the sun, and therefore it spends 1 year in every zodiacal sign as he travels through. And sometimes I reflect on that and I think, gee, you know, we're really very blessed that Jupiter actually has such a short cycle or orbit, in that it completes its cycle in 12 years, because it means that we get to experience Jupiter in every single sign every single year. Therefore, to some degree, Jupiter is bringing us a level of abundance and blessings and gifts every year as it enters every sign. And of course that will be understood when you're looking at where Jupiter is transiting in your own chart every year, essentially. It's not as simple as that, but just that's just a side note in terms of my own sort of gut feeling and intuition, because I think when you well, first of all, you need to have a really good Jupiter in your chart to really get the most out of Jupiter transits at any given moment. And if you don't have a great Jupiter in your chart, then you might be able to get the benefits out of Jupiter as it's transiting in other areas of your chart, where it fits really well in the house that it's transiting, or where it might be making some, you know, really nice aspects to other planets in your chart, and therefore creating some kind of opportunity, expansion and abundance on that kind of level, right? So the other thing that I wanted to kind of really impress on you as well is that if Jupiter is in detriment or fall, something something is lost with the essence and energy of Jupiter. So let's just backtrack a little bit. So Jupiter rules Pisces and it rules Sagittarius, as most of us would be aware, I hope. It is exalted in Cancer, and it is in detriment in Virgo and Gemini, and it is in fall in Capricorn. So its rulership and exaltation in Pisces and Sagittarius are clearly the most optimal place to have your Jupiter in. So if you do have Jupiter in Pisces or Sagittarius, that's a real blessing. It's a you know, it's a sign that you've been really given a lot of blessings and abundance this lifetime, and a lot of what might some people refer to as good karma, if you like, although that's a very simplified way of looking at things, and I don't like to reduce things in such simple sort of ways. But certainly, you know, having a really strong Jupiter is an indication that you've brought some good energy in with you. You've brought some abundance and blessings and opportunities and gifts, because perhaps in a previous life, you know, you worked very hard at certain things, so you're kind of being rewarded this lifetime. I guess that's another way you could look at it. And, you know, look, it's not to say that if you have Jupiter in detriment or fall that you were, you know, did bad things in a previous life. Again, that's a very reduced, limited perspective on things. We can't look at things in such narrow ways. And I've got Jupiter in Sagittarius, so I have a very natural, expansive perspective and view on life, on all the sort of multiple levels and dimensions that life exists. So, okay. So I just want to unpack a little bit the understanding and idea about Jupiter in rulership, fall, detriment, and exaltation. So if you have Jupiter in rulership or exaltation, it in very short and brief terms, it essentially gives you the sense or understanding and connection and knowing, inner knowing, that you are actually really protected on some level in this physical experience. There's an internal sense of security and confidence and safety that is not compromised or reduced in any way by the external physical experience and dramas of life. So it's not to say that you're not going to have any challenges and, you know, life is going to be a walk in the park. I'm not sure that life is a walk in the park for any human being. I don't think it's meant to be like that. Or how would we grow and evolve and expand and become conscious? So, but certainly when you do have a strong Jupiter, you're able to feel that greater sense of divine connection, divine intervention in your life, divine protection, divine expansion of consciousness, you know, the ability to know that there is something greater and infinite, if you like, that is really an aspect of you, but you are playing it out in this physical form and this identity that you have. But you are not separate from source, in other words. And when I say source, what I'm referring to is the ultimate source of creation. Okay, so there are many words for that. Some people use the word God, some people use the word Jesus, some people use the word Allah, some people use the word Buddha, some people use the word Krishna. It doesn't matter what word or character through history that we draw upon to have that sense of connection and understanding. What matters is that you have that internal, inner knowing of truth. That source is, the creation of all things, which is you and me and everybody else. So when you have a strong Jupiter, you have that innate understanding and inner knowing. It's there naturally. You don't need to try to develop it and try to believe it. More than anything else, you will be possibly more interested in sharing that with others, and therefore inspiring others who maybe don't have that kind of level of inner and understanding, right? So so Jupiter in Pisces and Sagittarius are, the preachers, the philosophers, the teachers, the gurus and so forth. They are the people that feel this incredible sense of inspiration, incredible sense of expansiveness through their consciousness. So as they're growing and evolving themselves through life, and they're attaining, as it were, through their experiences, whether it's in personal experiences or whether it's through study or working or whatever the case may be, they're basically just connecting to everything on that level. So as they grow and evolve, the Jupiter in rulership for that person, the wisdom starts to come forth and shine, and certainly maturity has a big part of that. You do see some really wise little souls though floating around on the earth. I've met some amazing younger people, like as in children, who say things that are just out of this world, but they're clearly just tuned into the other side, and there's no boundary there, so they're just receiving, downloading, and it's just pouring out. That's getting a little bit off track. Okay, so that in a nutshell and in essence, and without sort of spending a long time talking about all the various components of Jupiter, the one main thing that I want people to understand is when Jupiter is in rulership or exaltation, it's going to deliver. Okay, it's going to deliver in your life. That, as I said, gives people a real sense of confidence and security in their life. Now, there's a lot of people that really lack confidence and really have a lot of insecurities in their life. And, that obviously when we're pointing to certain patterns or themes or pathologies, I'm not suggesting that those patterns, themes or pathologies are playing out on every single stream in the person's life. It may just be that it's playing out in one stream of life, right? So a person can be, for example, in terms of earthly material success, a person can be very successful on that material plane, right? Have all the loads of money in the bank and the big cars and the big houses, and even fame, if you like. But is their soul connected and happy? Do they feel a sense of abundance and joy within? There's a lot of people that don't, and that usually comes from a Jupiter that's in detriment or fall. So its detriment, as I said, is in Virgo and Gemini, which are the two opposite signs to its rulership, which is Pisces and Sagittarius. And its placement of fall is in Capricorn because its exaltation place is a sign of Cancer. So exaltation for Jupiter is a great place as well. It's not as powerful, for lack of a better word, as rulership, but it is still holds its ground. It's still very think of the word exalted. When something is exalted, just think about that meaning. So when a planet is exalted, it's the energy is there. It's coming up, it's coming through, it's coming out, it's connecting. It's shining, as it were. It's alive. It's there. It's producing results, to put it quite simply. So now, when a planet is in detriment or fall, it is said to operate in a different or unusual manner as well. So quite apart from the fact that Jupiter loses something and misses out, it also will act in a very different kind of way. So when I say Jupiter misses out, this is what I mean. So if you had Jupiter in Capricorn, which is its place of fall, which is really not an ideal place for Jupiter at all, at all, at all. So what you may see, though, in a lot of cases is that you may see that the person really strives for that worldly success, which is Capricorn, and Jupiter will really assist in that process a great deal. But what will happen is that worldly success will drain Jupiter's function and Jupiter's true purpose and what Jupiter can truly offer and give. So the sign that's in detrimental fall drains Jupiter, basically. Okay, so Jupiter ends up missing out on what it's truly supposed to represent and bring, which is ultimately truth, wisdom, expansion in consciousness, because Jupiter is the planet that enables us to go beyond the horizon and visualize and connect with and see and understand life in a far greater, more expansive view, understanding, perception, feeling, experience, and so forth. So Saturn is the one that keeps us restricted and limited. I know it adds structure, I know it brings, you know, groundedness and all that sort of stuff. I know that, but I'm not talking about that. I'm just making a couple of distinctions here between Jupiter and Saturn on this level, just to help you understand Jupiter's function. So Saturn sort of brings the reins in and asks us to kind of take a step back. And Jupiter asks us to reach out and expand beyond your wildest dreams, expand beyond, you know, the limitations of the physicality of life. But the thing is that because Jupiter, if you think about the centaur Sagittarius, and this is one of the signs that Jupiter rules, the centaur Sagittarius is half man, half horse, you know, with the arrow, right? Now, this centaur wasn't limited because he was half man, half horse. In fact, he was able to use the power of the animal instinctual strength and understanding on those levels with the human form understanding and expansion and so forth. So so Jupiter in Sagittarius is, you know, that the all expansive way of connecting with life, right? And Saturn is what holds us back. Okay, so if you put Jupiter in Saturn's sign, which is Capricorn is one of them, Aquarius is the other, but in this case we are referring to Capricorn. So yeah, Jupiter in fall in Capricorn, it's not going to produce results on that consciousness, spiritual, expansive, evolving level. Okay, and you know, in other sort of psychological kind of terms, the other way that it would also manifest when it's in detrimental fall is that the person who has a detrimental fall Jupiter on some level doesn't trust life. You know, there's this sense of not feeling secure and safe in life, and there's a lack of faith, essentially, because Jupiter gives us that faith in ourselves, in life, and in the divine, which is within us. So a difficultly placed Jupiter is going to take away from that. So, you know, it is the people who have that who generally tend to experience feeling lost, feeling disconnected, feeling unsafe, feeling a lack of confidence, you know, not feeling confident to achieve their goals and their ideals and their dreams and go out there and take risks and, you know, be open and receptive to opportunities, because Jupiter is opportunities. It's blessings, abundance, and opportunities. So it shows up. And if you've got a difficultly placed Jupiter, you will struggle to, you know, to be receptive to that, because inherently and innate in your birth chart, Jupiter, if it's in detriment or fall, you don't have a natural receptivity to that energy. So the inherent kind of pathology, if you like, or psychological template would be that you can't trust life, you know. So there's this sense of you have to do it all yourself, you have to work really hard, no one's going to help you, you know, all that sort of stuff, basically. That's how it kind of manifests on a psychological level for people. So having Jupiter in a good sign, certainly in rulership, in exaltation, is a great blessing and a great gift for those of you who do have it. For those of you who don't, I'm not saying that you're not going to have a good life or that you won't have, you know, opportunities and things like that. You will, but I mean, just have a look at your own chart. Have a look at other people's charts of people that you know. Ask people the question, if they've got a Jupiter in detriment or fall. Ask them how they feel about life. What sort of faith do they have? You know, ask them these questions and see for yourself. My experience has been that when I've seen with a person who has Jupiter in detriment or fall, there's a big struggle in life. There's a big struggle to have that sense of faith and connection and belief in the unknown, because the Jupiter function of feeling that sense of faith is not something that needs to be proven. You know, the whole world of proving is the Saturnian world. And so it's the Saturnian energy of people's charts that seek this proof and evidence of something to be represented in the material form, so that they can see it with their physical eyes and touch it with their hands and understand it with their left brain. And if those elements are not in place, then those people will not have a bar of what you're telling them, such as astrology and lots of other things as well. Okay, so let's just move on. I hope you get the sense of how important it is to have Jupiter in a good sign, right? And a good house for that matter too. We haven't even talked about, you know, Jupiter aspecting certain planets. I'll do another video on that, because that will be very useful to know too. But just remember that, remember the glyph for Jupiter, which is the half circle and cross of matter. So the cross of matter is matter. It's the earth, literally. And the circle represents the soul and the divine mind. So that symbol, what it tells you is that when you have a strong Jupiter, you can actually create with the divine mind into the material world things that may seem impossible for many other people, because they don't have that core fundamental faith and belief, because their Jupiter is not well placed. So if they had Jupiter in Capricorn, like I said before, you know, that person may gain some kind of material success and rewards and achieve things on that level. But on a soul level, there's not going to be that sense of contentment, of true joy and contentment, generally speaking, okay? All right, so I want to talk a little bit about, actually I might leave that for now. What I might go into is Dustin Hoffman, okay? So I just quickly had a look at a few famous people's charts before I sat down to do this video, and I was looking for something very, very specific. I was looking for a famous person who has Jupiter in detriment or fall. And I only looked at 4 people, and the 4th one that I came across has Jupiter in fall, which means he has Jupiter in Capricorn, and it just so happens that he happens to be in the limelight at the moment in Hollywood. He's an actor, Dustin Hoffman. And I'm not making a personal judgment on this man or this character, by the way, so I just want to make that very clear from now. In terms of him as an actor, I actually think he's wonderful. Now, so I don't have an opinion on these allegations. I'm merely coming from an astrological scope of things, okay? And I'm trying to teach you guys something about when Jupiter is in fall. So one thing that I haven't mentioned yet, which I'll mention now because it's very appropriate, when a planet is in fall, what usually can happen is that there is, to use medieval terminology, so it's not terminology that we really, it's just getting a bit dark, isn't it? It's not terminology that we walk around using on a daily basis. So the term being a fall from grace. So you don't walk up to one of your friends and say, have you had a fall from grace lately? No, it's not terminology we use. But this terminology comes from medieval astrology. So when a planet is in fall, according to medieval interpretation, usually what happens to the person is that they have a fall from grace, okay? So in the case of Dustin Hoffman, I read that earlier this year, the first allegation came through about him having sexual misconduct allegations with regards to a 17-year-old female throughout the filming of a particular movie some time ago. The allegations are not pleasant, and they really do make him look pretty bad. And it's interesting because Dustin Hoffman is a Leo, so on the one hand he's been shining all this time, Sun in rulership, so the king in his domain, you know, sort of shining and achieving, and acting in Dustin Hoffman's case, because Leo is the sign of actors. However, Dustin Hoffman has Jupiter in Capricorn right on the ascendant, if that is the right time of birth. Even if it is not the right time of birth, he still has Jupiter in Capricorn, and that is Jupiter in fall. Now, with all these allegations that have come forward, also, I didn't finish, just recently, as in earlier in December this year, another 5 women came forward and have also made allegations against Dustin Hoffman. So that's 6 women in total so far. That doesn't look too good, does it? So the thing is this, right? We don't know if those allegations are true. The people that are making them, they know, right? We don't know. So we can't really make a judgment. But what we're actually assessing here is what's happening to this man. You know, he's been this, you know, renowned actor. He's made incredible films. He's been around for a long time. He's in his very late 70s. He's almost 80 now. And suddenly he's having a fall from grace. Why? Because he's got Jupiter in Capricorn. So there you go. There's an example of Jupiter in Capricorn, fall from grace, Jupiter in fall, fall from grace. It's not a nice placement. Simple as that. As we can see, Dustin Hoffman has certainly accumulated wealth on that material earthly plane level, which is, I'm sure, has given him extensive comfort on that material level, but on a soul level, well, we don't know. We can't assume what's been happening to him because we don't know him personally. I certainly don't. But just in terms of Jupiter being in fall and him having a fall from grace just in the last month as a result of sexual allegations. And it is interesting because at the moment, while these allegations have come forth, in terms of what's called Firdaria periods, planetary Firdaria periods, which is from a medieval system school of thought. He's in a sun-moon period at the moment, and his sun and moon are both in the 8th house, potentially if the time of birth is correct. And the 8th house is the house of sexual energy and in all the different ways that it can manifest. So anyway, that's enough of Dustin Hoffman. I just wanted to give you an example of how you can learn to look at things in this way. So just one other thing that I'll quickly bring in, because I said I would, so I think I should. I mentioned that the Firdaria planetary periods, pardon me, Firdaria is spelled Firdaria, okay, for those of you that are interested in exploring it. The Firdaria system that I use is, just bear with me while I just look it up again. Basically, there are different authors, you know, through the years that have come up, and the Firdaria period can look very different from one person to the next in terms of, sorry, I just need to move that, in terms of the planetary cycles. So I'm using what's called the Greek-Persian version. That sounds funny. Greek-Persian version. Which, what that does is, and what I might do is draw this up next time so that I can actually visually show it to you, because I'm looking at it on my computer at the moment, and I'm sorry, I know that's not helpful for you. So what happens is this: if you're a day birth, you will begin with the sun planetary periods, as they call them, and then you will go through every single planet until the age of 93. Okay, that's as far as this system goes. So if you live longer, well, we don't know what happens. So you start with the sun, and then you follow through all the different planets, and there's a very particular sequence and order of the planets. And if you're a day birth and you start with the sun, you have your Jupiter Firdaria period at the age of 51 right through to 63. Okay, so approximately what is that, 10-year period, 63, so sorry, 12-year period. So that's very significant, because when you're looking at a person's chart and you want to look at their Firdaria periods, you know, if they're in a Jupiter period and Jupiter is in great shape in their chart, that's going to be a, you know, a really amazing, beautiful, expansive, fortunate period for them. And it's quite a long period because they're in it for 12 years. But what happens is you're not just in a Jupiter period. You start off with Jupiter, and then Jupiter is broken down into sub-periods with other planets. So it follows like this. It starts off Jupiter, then it'll go into Jupiter sub-period Mars, Jupiter sub-period Sun, Jupiter sub-period Venus, sub-period Mercury, sub-period Moon, sub-period Saturn. And then after that, you change planetary periods altogether and go into a Mars Firdaria period. Okay? I'm not wanting to teach this whole system here just through 5 minutes of talking about it, because it's basically impossible. But what I wanted to bring to your attention, given we are talking about Jupiter, it is really good to be able to know whether you're in a Jupiter planetary period, Firdaria period, based on whether you're a night birth or you're a day birth. If you are a night birth, then your Jupiter Firdaria period begins at the age of 20 and completes at the age of 32. I am a night birth, so I had my Jupiter Firdaria period from 20 to 32, and that really, really describes those years for me on so many different levels. And it is the time that I also studied astrology. I went to 2 different schools and studied, you know, anyway, whatever I've achieved, I've achieved. So I studied for quite a few years, and it was during those years as well. So that was the perfect prime time for me to be doing something like that. So yeah, if you're a day birth, your Jupiter period will be from age 20 to 32. If you are a night birth, it will be from the age of 50 to 61. And how that Jupiter period will manifest is going to be seen through what sign your Jupiter is in. You know, is it in rulership, exaltation, is it in fall, is it in detriment, or is it in any of the other signs? And if it is, you know, what house is it in, etc. Jupiter is a really important planet, quite apart from all the, you know, psychological components that it describes. I think the most important thing we can take away from understanding Jupiter is the sense of having a sense of faith and belief and trust and compassion and optimism and generosity and divine mind, you know, operating and working and connecting. It's really, really, really important to be able to connect to our Jupiter. So I think I'll leave it there for today. Hopefully that gives you just a little bit more insight into how Jupiter works if he's in rulership or exaltation, and what he does when he's in fall or detriment. So just remember, when he's in fall or detriment, Jupiter will lose out in some kind of way. And when he's in fall, there's usually a fall from grace. And just to use, I know I use Dustin Hoffman as an example because that's quite a dramatic example given what's happened. But to use an example again, actually, before I go, just to help you guys understand, if the person wasn't famous and they didn't have a lot of money, that could just simply be the person's reputation is ruined in some